Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio. Your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Think about the person who changed a direction in your life. Maybe they gave you an opportunity, they believed in you before you even believed in yourself, or maybe they simply asked you a question at exactly the right time. Would you be there without that person? Welcome to That's What She Said. I'm Maria Gallucci, and today we're talking about something I think that all of us need at some point in our life. And we always need someone in our corner. My guest today is Doug Lawrence, an international mentoring expert, author, and speaker, and founder of Talent C. Doug has spent more than 30 years studying people and practicing mentoring, and hearing people and organizations that make them understand what a great mentoring actually is. Doug, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, and thank you for this wonderful opportunity to be a part of your show. I'm truly, truly blessed.
Thank you. So for people who don't know you, what do you do, and what is your goals?
So I'm an international certified mentor, actually a grief mentor, if you want to take it to the nth degree. I work with people who are struggling to go on their healing journey and be able to do that. I'm an international best-selling author. I have 3 books that are out there, and we'll talk about that later. But I have 3 books that are out there. One, Grief: The Silent Pandemic, is a 5-time Global Book Award winner, and I'm hoping, cross your fingers, I'm hoping that we'll be able to pick up another one as well. So that's without getting into any longer bit of a story. That's a little bit about me.
So what for people who always wonder, like, what exactly is a mentor? Like, how would you explain what a mentor would be?
So the book would describe mentoring as, or the mentoring process as, a two-way trusted relationship where both the mentor and the mentee learn and grow together, both personal and professionally, in order to be able to move forward. And typically what ends up happening is that people get hung up in the mentorship piece where they sort of see it as being something that is particularly career development. And yes, it is part of that, but my focus has been and always will be on the personal growth of an individual that I'm working with. I want them to be able to move forward with their life. I want them to be able to tackle all those things and to believe in themselves as a human being.
So, and I 100% agree with that, because I think a lot of people think that mentoring is somebody who's successful sitting across the table from you and telling you what to do with their life. But that's not really mentoring, right?
No, and the telling part, no, we don't do that anymore. So what it basically, I use the Socratic method as a way of walking somebody through problem solving and dealing with situations, and I do that, you know, it's come becoming a second nature for me, is the aspect of asking versus telling, and doing that a lot more often. So that, yeah, it's the Socratic method is sort of the path to where we need to go.
So I have a good question, and I think that a lot of people always wonder this. What's the difference between a mentor, a coach, a consultant, and or just a friend sitting across the table giving you great advice?
So that's a big question to
It's a
answer.
good question.
Yeah, I was going to say that, but I thought, well, no. It, so the difference between coaching and mentoring, from my perspective, is that a coach is somebody that you would bring into an organization where they were having performance issues, they were struggling with, behavioral type sort of thing. And a mentor is somebody, and the easiest way to describe it is with as a mentor, I'm brought in to try and see if I can orchestrate that behavioral change and be able to deal with it that way. And then if you plug into all that, the rest of that, there's social workers, there's counselors, there's all of those elements that are all part of that. And what I try to teach people that are looking to become a mentor is that there's a line in the sand and we don't want to cross that, where, you know, I could tomorrow end up counseling somebody, and that's not my function or my role. I'm a mentor, and that's the process that I use to help somebody get back on track and move forward.
Do you believe that everybody needs a mentor?
Yes, I do.
So,
And
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, go ahead.
Even if you're already successful today, do you still believe that you would need a mentor to help you through what you're going
You
through?
Well, and especially if the short answer is yes, but what I would suggest is that, we're moving down a path where grief is being part of the support structure. So I may, I know for myself, lost my wife to cancer in 2021. I don't have a mentor, and knowing what I do for others, I wish I did.
And I think grief is a huge thing. And for me, I had lost my best friend to suicide, and I was
Mm.
it was very hard for me with her. So, what advice do you give people when they're going through something like that? Because even now, even though it'll be almost 4 years next year. I lost her and my dad the same year, and I still think that I have a hard time with that.
And you will. There's with grief that doesn't have a start and a stop date. It's something that you're going to experience. It goes on forever and ever. Not to sort of scare people away, but I was doing some networking, and I was talking to this gentleman who, his son had passed away 12 or 14 years ago. And here he is, he's still grieving the loss of his son, and has no real sense of direction as to when is his journey going to start and stop, and all of that. And what I got him to understand was that it may never stop, but what if he can reach out to others who have walked in those same shoes, it's going to help. It's not going to make it go away, but it's going to help him in his healing journey.
Yeah, and I think community is so important when it comes to that to like grief. I wish I had more of that when Stacy had passed away and everything. What do you think that what are the red flags that people can look out for, knowing or to find out if this mentor is not for me or the group is not for them?
You will end up where you don't connect. That's the main thing that I find, is that when I get together with people and I'm trying to decide, do I want this person as my mentor or not? And if there's no connection there, then it's a not. I'm not going to connect with that individual. There's so much is tied to trust, so much is tied to relationships and building those strong, trusted relationships. It's also communication. So how well does this person communicate their thoughts and feelings, and how are they aligned with me as an individual? So those would, definitely be seen as some of the things that I would be looking for.
Exactly. And do you think that's what separates a great mentor from somebody or someone who just gives you advice?
Yeah, someone who just gives advice scares me. It they really, because there's no sense or no purpose. They're behind what it is that they're doing. They've never walked in my shoes, so they don't know, they may not know what it's like to lose a loved one. And so you definitely need to, to ideally to get that. I do quite a bit of, excuse me, quite a bit of mentoring with people that are struggling with, the loss of. I have one individual who lost um, five children,
Oh, wow.
and so we're working through it, and sometimes it's an uphill battle, but they understand the power of mentoring, and they've reached out, and we're working together. We meet once a month virtually, and deal with it that way. And it's making a difference. It is truly making a difference, but it's only because she wants to change her life and make it, get back on track, and start to deal with her grief in a more structured approach.
And you work with so many people like throughout your career. Why do you feel like people get stuck or they keep harboring the grief, or even with business people also always get stuck?
You know, the big thing, the simple answer is that most people, when they get stuck like that, the reason they're stuck is because they have no one to walk beside them, and that can mean so much to all of us. That we have somebody that walks beside, and I'm having a bad day, and I can say to my mentor, life sucks, I'm having a bad day, and uh, they're going to be able to turn around and say, it's okay, let's talk our way through it. Or maybe you just need to be by yourself, or maybe, we need to go for that walk in the park, and just let everything release as it may seem, and then go from there.
And I feel like a lot of people don't know what to do either, and then sometimes they're afraid that they know what to do, but they don't want to do it. What advice do you give for people who feel like that?
That's a good question, and part of that is tied to communication, where people don't know what to say, when to say it, or how to say it, and so they sometimes choose to say nothing, which is not very good, or they'll say something that they probably shouldn't, and that's not very good. So it's what I always tell people is that if I'm dealing with grief and you don't know what to say, then ask.
Exactly, and I feel like I'm a shutdowner, and so even with, like,
Mm.
going through the grief with Stacy and everything, I never talked to anybody about it, and I think that that's not a good thing. I think that you should have someone you should be able to talk to. Do you think that helps throughout the grief the process?
It does. You having somebody to help you process your grief, and that is something that's definitely needed, because you'll find that what if you happen to lose another loved one while you're still grieving? So now you've compounded the grief so that it's now twice as much, and twice as much pain and suffering than what you had before, simply because we didn't process the first grief as well as we could have.
I wonder, that's actually a good theory because I had lost Stacy in February and then my dad in November, and so I didn't even grieve Stacy or my dad either. And so and it's been it'll be 3 years in November. So do you think that is it never too late to
Yeah.
grieve and mentor, find a mentor to help you through it, even if it's years later?
Yeah, it to just sort of say, oh, it's, I should have done it 2 years ago, so I
Mm.
didn't do it, so I won't bother going down that path again. No, that's not a good approach to do. I encourage people, like, I didn't know what grief and dealing with it, and I lost my mom back when I was knee high to a grasshopper, and it was, I wish now I would have done things differently, like with her passing. It would have made my life a whole, well, not simpler, but it would have given me something to work with. Because then when my wife passed away, I still am dealing with the grief and the loss, but it doesn't feel quite as bad, simply because I dealt with my mom's passing to some extent. So, there's a window there that I could use to be able to process that. But my advice to your listeners is that don't let it pile up. Don't let your grief compound. Just make sure that, you're dealing with it. You find somebody that's going to, as we, typically say, that's going to, so you don't have to walk alone, that you've got somebody that walks beside you and helps you deal with both, in this case, both sets of grief.
So I have a question that I've always personally wondered. So I lost my mom in my early 20s, and then I lost obviously Stacy and my dad, just like I'm not going to say my age, but older. So do you think that, and I've always wondered if when children lose someone versus a teenager, someone in their 20s, 30s, 40s, do you think that the grief is different?
Yeah, it is. If you losing a grandparent, for example, you losing a grandparent is one sort of sense of grief. Losing a significant other, a spouse, or yeah, basically a spouse, is probably the most gut wrenching that you will ever encounter. And you need to be able to, in both those cases, you need to, as I say, come out of the closet, extend your hand, and ask for help. And those are the things. But uh, for me, and from what I've seen, the one that really is the toughest is your loved one. So if you lose a husband or a wife or boyfriend, girlfriend, anything like that, it's going to be a grief that rips your heart out, and you need to be able to figure out, okay, who can I turn to that's going to help me get through this particular sense of loss that I'm dealing with.
I agree, and I know that Stacy, she wasn't my partner with him, but she was my best friend for 25 years, and
Yeah.
my grief for her was a lot harder than my mom and my dad, and I've always wondered why that was, because I'm thinking, why is losing my best friend over my parents like so much harder to deal with? And I know it was suicide, and I think that may have been some of the issue of it, but I've always wondered like what the difference was. But we're going to go to commercial break and come right back and wait for you to answer that.
Some people sell homes. Maria Gallucci helps people find connection, confidence, and a place to belong. As the broker-owner of Gallucci Homes and a Colorado real estate expert ranked among the top 1.5% of real estate professionals nationwide, Maria provides trusted guidance to buyers, sellers, investors, and builders throughout the Denver area and nationwide. But Maria's influence extends far beyond real estate. Raised by deaf parents, she is also fluent in American Sign Language. Her personal journey inspired her book, Raised in Silence, and her commitment to helping people feel seen, heard, and understood. Maria is also the television host of That's What She Said with Maria Gallucci on the USA Global TV and Radio Network, where she leads honest, meaningful conversations with women and guests from around the world. Author, television host, broker owner, advocate. Maria Gallucci brings experience, heart, and authentic communication to everything she does. Visit GallucciHomes.com and RaisedInSilence.com. Maria Gallucci, helping people find their voice, their connection, and their home.
Welcome back to the show, and welcome back, Doug.
Back.
So, as we were talking about before, do you think that the connection that you have with the people that are passing away, do you think that that makes a difference on how the grief feels?
Yes. Yeah, I do. I think the different types of grief that you go through, each one of those has, we'll call it a feeling or a sense that you're going to experience. But the most important thing I think that we can stress, with your listeners is that, you need to come out of the closet and ask for help, because that's typically a stereotype that we have to deal with, is that if I were to do that, I'm weak and I need to be supported more and stuff like that. And you're not weak. You just need a little guidance as far as how am I going to process my grief, and who am I going to ask to be that person to walk beside me.
Do you think that there's a difference between, so both my parents had cancer, so they died, so I watched them pass away, where Stacy was taken very quickly. Do you think there's a difference in the process when you're watching someone die versus one that's taken away instantly?
Yes. Yeah, there definitely is, because I know I watched my mom pass away to some extent. Well, what was interesting was that with my mom and with my wife Deborah, they waited till I had left the room before they went.
Mhm.
And you
Yeah.
always, you kind of wonder, how did that happen?
I feel like they know, because
Mhm.
it's funny because both my parents did as well, and then my mom wanted to watch the Broncos. I'm in Colorado, so she wanted to watch the Broncos play. It was like an AFC champion or something, and then she passed away right after, like after it was there. And then my dad wanted to watch. It was Spider-Man. It was like the new Spider-Man, so he watched that and then passed away shortly after. So I think that they know, and then they wait for us to make sure that we're okay. Do you agree with that?
Well, yeah, definitely. Like, it was with my mom first that it happened, and the family said, Doug, you need to go home, get some sleep. So, and I'm thinking, I don't think that's a good idea. But I went home, and the next thing I know is we get a phone call from some of the family members saying, you better get up here to the hospital fairly quickly, because it looks like she's going to go.
Mm.
And apparently she sat upright in bed. And this was my mom, looked around and didn't see me. So that was it. She passed.
Do you mind if I ask how old you were?
I was probably, I would have been in my 30s, maybe. Yeah, 30s probably.
Yeah, I was in my very early 20s, and my mom had the exact same scenario. So I definitely think they know if we're there and don't want it to be hard on us as their kids or partners and stuff. And I'm going back to mentoring. Do you think that is there anybody that went to you for a reason to mentor, and then you guys realize that that really isn't why they're there?
I've had those situations, opportunities where somebody has actually come to me and I've said I'm not the right person, and and that's part of what I typically try to do is if I can't provide or bring value, then I will help you find somebody that can. Because the last thing we want to have take place is to have somebody that I'm working with somebody who doesn't want to have a relation, like a mentoring relationship.
Mhm. Do you think that some people can be unmentorable, like you can't or people can't mentor them because they're not willing to listen or willing to take the advice that you guys give?
You know, that's a good question because I've had some. I was working I had this organization that brought me in to work with a couple of their staff. I made a connection with one, and things went really, really well to the two of us together. We had actually I had guided the person to a place where I felt that the organization could actually see the value in what it is that we were doing. The other person, completely different, um, had a attitude that you know they didn't need this stuff. In fact, they felt that they should be the ones teaching me how to mentor. Can always teach an old dog new tricks, I guess. So we'll we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and I feel like, especially being mentored or even with coaching and everything, I feel like we as individuals have to be open to what they say, and we have to actually take their advice and do what they're recommending that they do. Otherwise, we don't go anywhere. And I feel like a lot of us might have like egos in our head thinking, you don't tell me what to do. So what do you think that something today's leaders and people think wrong about, like discovering your own self and being mentored or coaching?
You know, the sort of to go back a little ways in our conversation is the aspect of part of the mentoring slash coaching outcome that you can experience from going through that particular process is your ability to uh, ask questions versus telling. So you start to recognize the value add in that process. And I know that even with people that are just not getting it, that if I pose a series of questions, and I'll give you an example, I can say to somebody, what would happen if we were to do this? So number one, I've made it a we statement, so I'm not putting you on the island by yourself. And I'm giving you a series of answers that may or may not solve the problem, but at least it gives you something to work with. And it can actually be the answer, or it can be a series of questions that will help you find the answer.
Oh, I love that. And one of the things I always consistently talk about is belonging and making people feel like seen and valued. Do you think that there's a connection between belonging and mentoring?
Oh, definitely. Yes, definitely. You know, and we going back again where we talked about the value and all of that, it's really important that the people that I'm working with mentoring that they feel valued, and the value comes from the relationship they'll develop with me, but it's also It's the relationship that they have with their organization and how important that is for them to be able to see that and be able to move forward. I worked with a young lady who had no self-esteem. She had nothing like that. And we worked together. So I got her to a place where she saw that she actually did bring value, and that she ended up actually getting a job or getting promoted to a regional type of a role, and ended up moving to Toronto to be in the head office in Toronto. And it was simply because we changed her perspective of who she
Perspective.
was. Yeah.
And I think that the most powerful thing that anybody could do for anybody is making someone feel like they matter. And I think that with mentoring, that like helps a lot. And then, because I actually have a coach too, and I think that a lot of the stuff that he says to me helps me in my personal life and not just business. And I think that's so important. And you wrote an incredible title of a book. It's called "You're Not Alone." So why did you pick those four words? Because I think a lot of us need that, like that I think that goes through our head a lot, that we're not alone.
Yeah, You Are Not Alone was written as part of my exploration of mentoring and dealing with mental health. So I went through where I ended up having to deal with post-traumatic stress as a result of my time. I'm a retired police officer, and as a result of my service, I ended up with PTSD, post-traumatic stress. And the book was my first foray into the world of mentoring can be part of the support structure for mental health. And
And I,
that's where the book came from.
and I think that a lot of us try to be independent, and so we are afraid of that. And when do you think that it starts becoming being isolated?
Right, fairly early. Because I think of when Deborah passed, I couldn't drive past the hospital that she passed away in, because if I did, I broke down and was just a mess, to say the least. And so it was getting that extra help to be able to work my way through that. That if I had not have done that, if I had not of, kind of looked in the closet and sort of saw, oh, gee, there's somebody there that can help me. And if I hadn't done that, this would be a different conversation today for sure.
And that brings me to the other book called Gift of Mentoring. Why do you consider gift or mentoring a gift?
That particular book was the combination of a whole bunch of blog articles that I had written, and I had a gentleman that I went through basic training with the RCMP with. We went through in the same troop, and he said, you should take all of those articles. He said, they're so powerful and dynamic. You should take all of those articles and turn them into a book. And so that's where the gift of mentoring came. And that sort of planted the seed of writing the next book, when I saw that here was a golden opportunity with You Are Not Alone to be able to write, take and write another book, one that was focused on mental health, which at the time when we started the journey, that was a very topical issue, was mental health. And so I was trying to say, okay, we can bridge that.
Mm.
We can bridge that. And the idea behind bridging is that I've gone to see my social worker, my psychiatrist, whichever one you want, and it's 6 months now before I get to see them again. I've got my mental health mentor that I can go to that'll be there to support me and help me deal with that. So that's how that connection came. And then the third book, which is Grief, the Silent Pandemic, is one that it focuses for the most part all on grief. It talks about a number of the different phases of grief, and it shares some lived experience that I've had with grief, and the fact that I'm still dealing with it. I have a tough time. It's a lonely journey. That's probably the easiest way, because I have no one I can plug into or anything like that. So those are the three.
Exactly. And I feel like it's so important, especially with mental health, because I feel like a lot of people don't see it as a necessity to get help and to get mentorship. And I thank you so much, because I think that you've opened up all of our perspectives around that. And I think that a lot of stuff that none of us have to go through these completely alone. And so there are people out there. So if people wanted to reach out to you, where can they find your book and find you?
So the books are available on Amazon. So Amazon.com, Amazon.ca. So you can certainly get a copy of the book that way. To reach me, you can reach me on my website at www.talentc.ca, and just send me a message through the website, and we can definitely have a conversation. And the other part, I'm very active on LinkedIn, so send a DM to me and we'll set up time for a conversation. And then finally, the one that's probably makes the most sense is just send me an email to doug.lawrence, LAWRENCE, @talentc, so the word talent with the letter C on the end, .ca, and we can set up a time to have a meaningful conversation, and hopefully, maybe, who knows, we can end up where we end up with in a mentoring relationship and I'm able to help you deal with your grief journey.
Doug, thank you so much for being here. You've actually changed my perspective, especially about the grief process, because I have been struggling with those. So thank you so much for being a guest on That's What She Said.
Well, and thank you for this opportunity. And if you're still struggling, you can always reach out to me.
Yes, I will, for sure.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. That just completely changed my perspective on grief and seeing how important a mentor should be for you. So if anybody out there wants to get a hold of me, I'm GallucciHomes.com. And then also my book is Raised in Silence, and it's about belonging. And that is on all book platforms, Amazon, and it has its own website with RaisedInSilence.com. See you next week. Thank you.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA Global TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.